Hi guys, Samantha from Tutorials here, and today I'm going to show you a bunch of textures that you can make or find around your house. So I've got a piece of black clay here, and that is what I'm going to use today, and I'm also going to be highlighting it with some gold mica powder so you guys can see what I'm doing. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you how to make something really cool, and all you need is a skewer and some wire, and the wire can be any gauge you want, but personally I think the thinner it is the better. And all you do is you just take your wire and you'll wrap it securely around your skewer and then just hold it in place and then start wrapping your wire around the skewer. And then you can carry on doing that as much as you want. You can overlap it if you want. You can keep them evenly spaced if you can do that. It really is completely up to you how you wish to do it. And I use up lots of little bits and pieces of wire that I use, and I just wrap them around the skewer. Now I already have one done over here, and this was done with gold wire, and you can see how it looks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to bring over that piece of black again, and let me just smooth that down to the tile so it's nice and stuck down. And I'm going to take the skewer and I'm going to roll it across the clay. And I'm going to take some mica powder here, and I'm going to quickly highlight this for you so you can see what it looks like. There we go, and that is what the texture looks like, and it looks really cool. The black bits are the raised parts, and so you could use that for the back of your piece. You could also use it for the front and incorporate it into your project. You could also go and roll the opposite way again and get almost like a crosshatch. So let's see what that looks like. And you could highlight one and leave the other one not highlighted. So let me just quickly highlight that and see how it looks. Okay, so I've quickly popped some mica powder over the top, and now I'm just going to use a wet wipe to wipe away the mica powder on the top. And you get almost a really organic, kind of almost like a fishnet pattern if you do that. So that's really cool. So hopefully you can see that nicely on the camera. Bring that up. And that's a really nice organic pattern that you could use in lots of different ways. So that is our first texture. Okay, and now we'll move on to the next one. Again, I'll just use some black. And for this one, I'm actually going to be using a feather. Feathers are great textures. So I'm just going to place this one over here, and I've got another one over here, and I'll press this one in first, and then this one, and I just lightly press them, and then I will just roll across the surface. Make sure that that texture's in there properly. It can be a little tricky because you need to get the feather to actually stick into the clay to make sure that your texture looks proper. So sometimes using your finger is actually easier than using a roller. There we go. I'll lift that up. And now you can't really see much, so let me grab that mica powder again. I'll just brush that around. Okay, and so hopefully you can see that a bit better. Let me just brush away this excess mica powder. And then I'll just bring this, and I'm going to very lightly try to run with the actual veins of the feather. And this is a very subtle texture rather than the previous one that we did, which was quite deep and easy to see. So I'll just continue rubbing until you can see the texture properly. There we are. It's a very light and easy to miss texture, so it only works with certain projects, but as you can see, the feathers definitely pick up, the clay definitely picks up all that detail, so that can be used in a few different projects. Okay, I'll bring over the next one, and this one I'm going to actually be using some lace. Lace creates a really beautiful pattern in polymer clay. So let me just quickly dry the moisture on this tile because the clay isn't sticking very well. There we go, and it will stick a bit better now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this lace and I'm just gently going to press it first. And then I'll squish a bit harder. I don't really like to use my acrylic roller too much before I've got stuck in. But once I've got stuck in, then I can use my roller without worrying about it getting lifted up. Okay, and then you can lift that and that will be a really cool texture, but what I like to do is I like to take some mica powder or paint. Alcohol ink won't work because it seeps through the fabric, but mica powder works the best. Just brush the mica powder around, and now you can take your time with this because you don't have to worry about anything, whereas with paint you would probably have to hurry a little bit more. And then just make sure that you burnish it with your brush, rub against it, make sure that mica powder is stuck down. And now I'm doing this quickly. You can do any colour you want, you could do more than one colour if you wanted. And there you are, you can see that creates a really cool pattern. I had some silver mica powder still on the lace, so you do need to wash it, but that can also create a really cool pattern. You can brush mica powder onto the lace beforehand and then put some more on. But there you can see that's a really cool detailed pattern. And super easy to make, and there's lots of different lace patterns that you can get hold of. Okay, and the next one we will be using some string, and I'm going to use some fine soft string like this. And what I want to do is I want to just wrap it around gently. It can be a little hard to get to do what you want it to do. There you are, once you've got it like that, get something to hold it down with. And I'm just going to use an acrylic block. And I'm going to hold that down, pressing, and I'm going to pull the string out. So let me just zoom out a little bit more for you. And I'm going to be pulling the string from here. There we are, and you're going to have some clay left over, so just gently scrape that off. And that is a really cool pattern. And so let me just quickly brush some mica powder onto that. I'm just busy scraping away any clay that might be left because it can scrape away some of the clay. There you are, I'm just going to brush on some mica powder. That's my oven. I finished baking some stamps. Okay, and now just grab my wet wipe and gently rub away these areas where it is raised. Area, and then let me just quickly clean up the outside area too. Okay, And there is our texture now that I've wiped away all of the excess mica powder. And I think that would make an absolutely beautiful coaster if you cut it out just over here and you sanded the black. It would look really, really nice. It's super simple. Make a lovely pendant as well. You could do a longer stretch of clay with a longer piece of string, and then you could wrap that around a bracelet. There's lots you could do with this technique, and it looks really nice. Okay, moving on to the next one. Let's see, I've got some shells over here. Shells are great sources of texture, so I've got an urchin here. And the urchins you need to be a little careful of because they will crack very easily. But you can create some really cute textures with them. You can see I'm just rolling it across the clay. And then I've got another little flat shell here. These ones that have the rim on them are really nice as well, because you can then press those in to your clay and that will easily pick up the texture of your shell. So if you live by the beach, go and see what sort of shells you can pick up. There are lots of shells that have excellent texture on them. And then I would probably use this for a back, or if I was making something organic, you could you would have done this on probably white clay. You could do a lot of cool things with it. So let me just brush this up like I have the others. And I just have to say how beautiful that looks, even with just the gold on it. Now if you rub away that mica powder, will reveal the texture, and that in my opinion looks even better. And again, that would make a really cool coaster. You could, or a pendant. You just brush away the mica powder as much as you can, and then you would cut out your pendant, coaster, or whatever you want. Bake it, maybe dome it. Dome it would look, with the dome it would look really nice. And then just sand it to a nice high shine, because the black looks really nice if you give it a nice shine against the gold, and it would look really cool. So again, with a bunch of these textures, you don't even have to do anything extra to them. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next one. Got lots of ideas. And again, you can use things like rocks, and some, if you don't live near the beach, if you go out into the countryside, you can find lots of different things that will create some really cool textures. But personally, shells are my favourites. Now another thing that you can use is cork, and I'm pretty sure lots of you have corks lying around. It's fairly easy to get hold of. So what you want to do, let me just take this out of the way, is cut this away roughly. You don't want to be doing this nicely. So I'm really kind of hacking at this, because that is exactly the point. It looks better if you do that. Just kind of get that front bit away. There we are. And then just brush off any excess. Then take your clay, press it in, and overlap your presses as well. And try to keep the texture consistent. It can be a little hard to do that bit, keeping the texture consistent, but it looks really nice. It's a really cool kind of stony texture, and I just like to do the basics of it, and then I'll go back and press lightly to remove any of these rings. So you just need to go over it a few times. And then I'll quickly brush that up. There we are. And it almost has like a worn leather look to it, which is really nice. So I'll just grab the wet wipe again and let's see how this looks when we brush the mica pad off. It probably isn't going to look as nice as the others because the texture is fairly flat. So it might highlight more of the imperfections than anything else, but let's give it a try. I think that looks quite interesting actually. There we are. And I'm not sure what that kind of looks like, but it does look very interesting. I think it's an interesting texture. It's not my favourite, but it's another one that you guys can try out. It's a bit more subtle than the other ones. Okay, let's try another one. Got 3 more to go. So another one that you can try is using screws like these and bottle caps. Bottle caps usually have a nice texture along their rim. So let me just zoom out. Now just make sure it's like down properly. And then I'll take the screw and I'm going to run it along the length. And that is going to be a more neat version of the one that we did with the skewer. Let's run this one. There we are. And then the bottle cap. See, that's quite an interesting texture. I'm not sure if you can see it while I'm doing it on the black, and that's why I like to do it with the gold afterwards to quickly show you what it looks like. Okay, and I'm just going to go quickly along the rim here and I'm going to do a little crosshatch. And the same with this one. So you can see what that looks like. There we are, and I'll highlight that with gold quickly. There we are. And that's what it looks like with the gold. Now we will quickly brush away the excess mica powder. And you can see that the bottle caps are a little bit shallower than the screws. But all in all, it creates a really cool texture. The bottle caps would make a nice border if you were planning on doing a border around bead. That would be a nice texture to use for that. Here we are. So that's really cool. There's a few textures there that you could use. So go and have a look around your house for bottle caps. Often when you're discarding them, you can find a whole bunch. Okay. Let's see. Next one I want to actually go into are papers that you can use. If you go to a scrapbooking shop or somewhere like that where you can get these scrapbooking papers, definitely get some. They're really cool. You can do a bunch of cool textures with them. So you can see there's a few here. Each of them have a different texture, but I'm only going to use one. And you'll just roll them into your clay. And these are a great alternative to something like sandpaper if you want a nice subtle back texture. And they're nice because you generally don't have to put cornstarch or anything on the clay to prevent sticking, because the paper generally comes off very easily. Okay, we'll quickly brush this over. And you can already see that texture coming out. It's going to look even better once we've rubbed off the excess mica powder. And it gives you a really nice detailed pattern. You'll get all of the subtle texture that would have appeared in the paper. Okay. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that. I'm just busy getting rid of any excess mica powder so that it's got a nice sharp texture. And I'll bring that up to show you. So that's a really nice texture. Okay, and now we're going to do one more. This will be our last one. Let's see. I think what we are going to use are some toys. And now toys usually have some really cool textures on them, like this dinosaur I got from my sister has a really interesting texture around there. And so I can run that across the clay. And create an interesting patchwork. And these can be a little tricky because of the fact that they generally aren't very even, and so it's a little difficult to get an even texture. But you can generally make it work by just slightly overlapping things. So I'm just busy filling in any gaps. There we go. And then I'll just quickly brush over that. And this can be a really easy way to obtain interesting textures, because usually toy animals have very interesting textures on them, because that's what makes them kind of interesting. So I'll brush the clay over, mica powder over, and then I'll just quickly wipe away excess. And so I did that fairly quickly. I will take usually quite a bit more time to roll it out to get a nice even texture as much as I can. But already you can see it's a really interesting texture. It would make for an unusual piece. And the nice thing about a lot of these is that each time it will come out different. It's not going to be the same every single time, which is something I like about it. So I'm just busy using my finger to get in the gaps and remove mica powder, because oftentimes it will be slightly uneven. So you will want to use your finger to remove the stuff. But there we are, that's really interesting. And with a lot of these textures you can actually go and bake things like this. Of course you won't put the mica powder on, but you would bake things like this and then you can use them to make a reverse and it would look really interesting. So let me just quickly wipe away this powder. And I just want to go into a few extras that you could think about using. So let's see. Another one, and a well-used one, is sandpaper. Coarse sandpaper looks really nice on polymer clay, so that is another texture that you could think about using. You can use string. You don't necessarily have to pull it, you can just rub it into the clay and it would look really interesting. Salt's a really good texture. You would simply grate it onto the polymer clay, and then if you can use it, if you can do it, you would then bake it, or if it would be a little bit hard to bake it, like you need to still cut out your piece, you would soak the piece of polymer clay in water and the salt would dissolve and it would give you a really cool lava texture. So that's another one. If you get netting around your vegetables or fruits, you will want to keep that because that can create a really interesting texture, and you can see if you pull it, it would create different textures depending on how you place it on the polymer clay. So that's another really interesting texture you could use. And then you can also just use your basic polymer clay stuff. If you use a tissue blade and you just chopped it slightly along the length of the clay, you could get a really cool interesting chop texture. So there's lots of different things. Let me know in the comments below what textures you have thought of while watching this video. I'm sure everybody would love to hear. I certainly would. And here are the textures that we made so you can see them again. Let me just zoom you out. And again, these are just a tip of the iceberg to the textures that you can play around with. Like with the shells here, you're going to get a different texture with every single shell that you use, so play around with that. Same with the feathers, you're going to get lots of different feather textures. With one like this, you can use different types of string, and depending on the coarseness of the string, you're going to get a different effect. And that one with the wire, play around with wire. You can mold all sorts of different shapes with the wire and it would look really interesting. So I do hope that this tutorial was helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments below, and again, please let me know what sort of textures you guys are playing around with, and as always, I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.